Liberia's struggle for genuine progress is rooted in a legacy of misplaced priorities by successive governments stretching back to the founding of our republic in 1847. This enduring pattern has resulted in persistent poverty for most citizens, while leaders enjoy extravagant lifestyles. As highlighted in the inaugural edition of this show, streamed live in July of 2025, I called for a national reckoning, urging those in power to show empathy and responsibility toward the people they serve. World Bank data from the Macro Poverty Outlook for Liberia in 2024 show that 26.4% of Liberians live in extreme poverty and more than half are below the national poverty line. In rural areas, 8 in 10 live in relative poverty. These numbers point to a system that rewards political allegiance over productivity and corruption over competence. The Williams family in rural Niba County illustrates this. 7 people in a small thatched hut, surviving on less than $1.25 a day. Despite constant work on their cassava plot, the children often go to bed hungry, and their 12-year-old daughter walks miles every day to fetch unsafe water. Their story humanizes the statistics exposing the daily hardship and injustice many Liberians face. To move beyond this cycle, we must address our fundamental priorities. Nation building, much like constructing a house, demands a clear plan and a solid foundation. In Liberia's context, this means focusing on 4 essential pillars: food security, healthcare, education, and the rule of law. Without these, sustainable development is impossible. To highlight the depth of our distorted priorities, I compared the pay of those who truly serve the public with that of those who merely serve themselves. As of January 2025, the minimum monthly salary for civil servants is $150 according to the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. A Liberian senator, by contrast, receives a gross annual salary of $114,457. That is about $9,538 per month, based on the 2024 national budget and Smart News Liberia. Thus, a senator earns more in 1 month than a minimum wage worker earns in over 5 years. Compared with neighboring Sierra Leone, which has a similar GDP and where a senator earns about $6,000 per month, Liberia's legislative pay is glaringly excessive. Meanwhile, teachers, nurses, and police officers struggle to survive on $150 a month, while legislators enjoy luxury vehicles, large fuel allocations, and lavish housing benefits, all funded by citizens in deep poverty. Now, this is not just inequality, it is institutionalized injustice. Leadership of this kind, short-sighted and extravagant, cannot move Liberia forward. We cannot achieve substantial progress if we continue to make poor economic choices, squander our resources, and depend on foreign nations to fund our most basic social services. I then turn to the ongoing wave of demolitions across Monrovia. I fully support the rule of law, road construction, and genuine development. But returning to the question of priorities, I ask, which phase of the government's so-called rescue mission is currently being implemented, and which phases have already been completed? Has the government finished its efforts to open up the country and decentralize economic activity, for instance, by building major highways and investing in agriculture? Has it upgraded existing schools and health centers in remote communities or built new ones so that people in those regions no longer feel compelled to migrate to the already overburdened capital of Monrovia in search of education, employment, or medical care? The still unfinished Banga Clinic, for instance, which has remained half built since 2022, acts as a concrete example of stalled rural projects that force residents to travel long distances just to access basic services. I have always argued that Liberia's problems must be addressed at their roots and not simply on the surface. I have always argued that Liberia's problems must be addressed at the roots and not simply on the surface. And the current situation proves this once again. The prevalence of squatting and illegal settlements, especially on so-called public or government land, is a symptom of urban overcrowding. The causes of this overcrowding are clear: limited opportunities and scarce resources in other parts of the country drive large numbers of people from the hinterland into Monrovia in search of a better life. How can the government fail to see this? Why not first complete the roads, expand basic infrastructure and services, and promote economic activity in other regions, and then encourage people to move there as an initial step toward resolving overcrowding, which fuels squatting and informal settlements? That would be a far more durable approach. Instead of compounding people's suffering, what we might call in Liberian parlance, adding insult to injury by evicting vulnerable citizens who are already battling harsh economic reality, we could launch a prosperity corridor initiative. Such a program can transform underdeveloped areas into prosperous communities by nurturing local industries, building essential infrastructure, and attracting investment. By directing resources in these areas, we would not only give people real incentives to remain or return to rural communities, but also create flourishing economic centers capable of sustaining national growth. This strategy envisions development as participatory and empowering for all Liberians rather than as a pretext for inflicting hardship under the banner of developing the country. A troubling misconception persists that development is measured by attractive cities and new buildings rather than by strengthening the country's core foundations. Many online commentators have praised recent efforts by the government to beautify Monrovia, believing this will make Liberia more like advanced nations. But history shows us that true progress begins with investing in rural agriculture, robust supply chains, and critical infrastructure. Advanced countries built their cities after ensuring prosperity and opportunity reached every region of their respective countries. Urban development followed, not led, their national transformation. Many of these commentators also ignore a fundamental psychological framework, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Considering Maslow's hierarchy, Liberia is still struggling to meet its people's most basic requirements: food, shelter, and healthcare. Now, as a country, we must secure these essentials before chasing elaborate goals like cosmetic urban beautification. Measuring Liberia against nations that have already reached the self-actualization stage of Maslow's hierarchy is not only short-sighted, it is deeply misguided. As I pondered over these important issues, I came across a highly insightful article written by a Liberian commentator, Mohammed Krumah. His piece, originally posted on Facebook via the closing argument earlier this month, asks readers to rethink the recent decision by the current Liberian leadership to invest $20 million in the construction of a new justice complex. Krumah thoughtfully challenges the government to consider not just the surface level benefits, centralized operations, and reduced rent, but the deeper implications from such a choice in a nation with pressing economic needs. He reminds us that although infrastructure projects like this building give a sense of progress and immediate political visibility, they do not actively encourage economic growth or directly improve the lives of ordinary citizens. Instead, Krumah offers a clear alternative vision. Imagine if that same $20 million were invested in solar energy and agricultural processing. In his scenario, these investments would create jobs, reduce food imports, generate revenue, and keep wealth circulating within Liberia. By following Krumah's analysis, we become acutely aware of the opportunity cost of favoring passive infrastructure over active revenue generating projects. He encourages us to question the reasons behind such government spending. Are these choices made for sustainable national development or for short-term visible wins ahead of elections? Liberia stands at a crossroads. Our greatest barriers are not just a lack of resources or talent, but the ongoing failure to put the needs of the many above the privileges of the few. Real independence cannot coexist with dependency on foreign aid or with public wealth concentrated in the hands of a small elite. We have the power to change our course by holding our leaders accountable, investing in foundational sectors, and making development inclusive and sustainable. Let us reject superficial progress and instead pursue a future built on equity, opportunity, and justice. Only then will Liberia's promise be realized for every citizen now and for generations to come.